Hi, this is video number 334. Another beautiful day today, probably about 80 degrees, sunny, a little bit breezy, nice day here. Got a lot of stuff done this morning. Did my elliptical workout. It's gonna be a while until I'm in pretty good shape from that again. I did another mile today. It took me about 15 minutes or so, but I can tell it works on different muscles, so I'll just have to keep doing that and lay off of some of the other things I do. My aches and pains. I was trying to think like why all of this arthritis pain lately. What in the world is going on? I was trying to think anything I've done differently lately, and I had been taking turmeric for quite some time, and I stopped in the last month or so, and things have been getting progressively worse. So maybe that's what it is. So I'm gonna start taking that again. Maybe I didn't think it really was doing that much for me, but it might actually have been doing that. Went over and got the newspaper earlier, some seltzer water. So I guess the walk to the grocery store is over. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Once I'll take this turmeric and see how that goes, and maybe I'll be able to walk better without pain after this. Last night didn't go to Harold's. Didn't have dinner. With these disasters going on in the world, he does computer kinds of things. How do I want to put this? He kind of like parts and so forth for different computer companies. He's kind of like the hub of what goes where and this and that, and especially in Mexico, the earthquakes and that, they have offices there and customers they service. So he was working like all day yesterday. He called me. He was going to get something to eat, and then he was going to go back to work. So he basically worked all of yesterday and probably a lot of last night too. So we didn't get together. Maybe later this in the weekend we'll do something. I don't know. Let's see what else. I got a card in the mail yesterday. The envelope came and it was addressed to Pappy. It was funny because the first thing I saw actually was the return address, and it was two words: Oog Bean. Okay, now Oog is Eli. When he was little, real little, he's still little. When he was real little, he had this little. It was called Scout. It was this little. I think it was actually a dog, like a little green dog, fuzzy. And if you would push on the paws, it would say stuff. And one of the things was, let's say something silly like Oogly Boogly. So I started calling him Oogly Boogly. When I started feeling better, I started getting a little funny and doing funny things. And I was starting to feel better. I thought, well, I'm going to call him Oogly Boogly. So I called him Oogly Boogly for a good while. Then as he got older, like 2 or so, I started calling him Oog, O-O-G. So that's kind of like where that came from. The card was from Oog. And then in the book too, if you've read the book, instead of Pennsylvania Psychiatric Institute where I was, I put in there Oogden Institute of Psychiatry, Oogden, O-O-G-D-E-N. So his name is kind of in there, but not directly. He's part of my book, my story. Anyway, it was a card. It went something like, this is a birthday card for not the greatest grandpa in the world, but the greatest grandpa in the universe. And I read that and I started smiling. My wife said, "Isn't that so nice?" And I said, "I think he's just playing Pappy. He wants something. He's just playing me." So maybe I don't think so. But he does know how to play Pappy and Grandma, and he's pretty good at playing us. He doesn't. Other people don't necessarily allow him to play them so much. Mom and Dad are on to him pretty much, and we are too. But we let him go a little bit more than they would. Let me see, what else do I have here? Want to go out to the church maybe later today. We're supposed to be getting some supplies, and then they have a carpet cleaner out there. Maybe you want to bring that home and clean the carpets here, the living room carpet anyway. It's been a while since it's been cleaned, so we could use a cleaning. Maybe I'll do that later today. Haven't done it. Actually, this one I've never actually cleaned, just some spots. But so maybe that's on the schedule for this afternoon. I'm not sure. Okay, I have a number of emails here and a Facebook message. I don't know that I'll get to everything here or not. It's hard to say. The first one is pretty long. And then I did actually write her a response that was also pretty long. So I'll start with that one and then see how far we get here. I'm at 5 minutes. Okay, it's a long email. Hi Dawn, I have written you a couple times before and I really appreciate your replies. I also appreciate very much the time and effort you take to maintain the website and make the videos for those of us who still have a ways to go toward healing. I watch at least one video per day, sometimes two. Wow. I have a wonderful, supportive family, but unfortunately they just don't understand what I am going through, even though they do try. It just makes no sense to them, and truly, it would not have made any sense to me either, had I not experienced this for myself. I have just reached my 1 year post cold turkey anniversary in early September. When I think back to where I was and how I was feeling 1 year ago at this time, it is frightening, but now I can see how far I have come. 1 year ago, I could not sleep at all. I got maybe 20 minutes of sleep at night at best. I could not taste, smell, or eat anything. My fingers, toes, and scalp were numb, and my skin was burning. I had weakness, jelly legs, hot flashes, and racing heart. All of that was extremely distressing, especially as I did not have any idea what was happening to me. The worst of my symptoms was the muzzy head and feeling of disorientation. I was very dizzy, disoriented, and removed. I felt like I was floating in an alternate universe, like the world was not real. I could not think in an orderly manner, and I could not follow or participate in a conversation. I would recognize individual words, but could not string them together to form a coherent sentence, nor could I understand what someone was saying to me. Sadly, I had to give up teaching language classes and participation in church groups because I could not comprehend planning lessons. My memory was practically non-existent. My vision was very distorted and things seemed either too close or too far away. I had to work very hard to focus on an object in order to see it. I still have some of this when my symptoms kick up. I was afraid to leave my home for many months because of the disorientation. I was very sensitive to noise and lighting. The lighting in some stores would totally freak me out and make me feel like everything was swirling around me as I was floating. I have come to learn that my symptoms are all very common in benzo withdrawal. So at 1 year off, I am doing much better and pretty much living my life fairly well, but I do have a couple of questions about my remaining symptoms. I still get tingling in my fingers and toes, fatigue, racing heart, hot flushes, and a feeling of general unwellness on a daily basis, but most of the time I can push through them, but not always. My fear is these symptoms are not benzo withdrawal, but something else. Have you known these kinds of symptoms to last this long for anyone? I have also heard you talk about DPDR, depersonalization, derealization, and a feeling of dazed dizziness. Can you please describe what that actually felt like and how you functioned through it? Also, at what point did it leave you, or do you ever still experience this symptom? I am wondering if what I am experiencing is DPDR because the words dazed dizziness struck a chord with me. I still have some degree of the heavy, floaty head with dizziness and a feeling of not being all there, along with a feeling of being off balance and unsteady every day. I have had a few days lately where this symptom kicked up so much that I almost felt like I had gone backwards by at least 6 months. It's scary, and then, of course, I tend to analyze everything to try to figure out the cause of the uptick. Did I eat something I shouldn't have, or sleep too much, too little, not well? Or am I overstressed? That can be stressful in itself. My fear is that I will be stuck with this symptom forever. Once again, many, many thanks for your willingness to comfort others with the comfort you yourself have received. Okay, that's a verse from I think Corinthians. Okay, and I did respond. I have something on the screen here I'm going to try to get rid of, which I probably just messed up, but let me see here once. Okay, I'm getting a screen and I can't. Okay, hold on a minute here. I got to exit out. Okay, I think I'm okay. Here we go. And I responded. My response is kind of long here too. It says, "Hi, congratulations on your 1 year anniversary. That is an accomplishment in itself. The tingling, fatigue, racing heart, And other symptoms you mentioned are all very common in benzo withdrawal, even at 1 year out. It is normal to begin to fear that symptoms which last so long may be caused by something else other than benzo withdrawal. It defies conventional healing logic for such symptoms to remain so long, but there is nothing conventional or logical about benzo withdrawal. I still had a lot of tingling, burning, vibrating, twitching, spasms, and fatigue at 1 year off. Of course, perhaps the longest lasting, very disturbing symptom I had was the one you and many others seem to be most concerned about: depersonalization, derealization. I had that disconnected, dazed dizziness for a very long time. This is one I did not like. That is one I did not like, but I did not fear it much because I had had it in a much less intense form for many years. Most of those years I did fear it because I didn't know what it was, but once I knew what it was not so scary. It was still very bothersome though. You have pretty much described the way it felt: disconnected, floaty, dizzy, unsteady, not there. It was very much like being in another dimension, but being able to observe myself without any connection to myself or anything, even though I knew I was present and could interact with my environment and surroundings. Not a pleasant symptom at all. I had had it for so many years that I had resigned myself to always being in that state. It did lift at around 30 months for me. I have known quite a few people who have struggled with DPDR in withdrawal, but who also did finally get rid of it. Interestingly, after my mental symptoms, fear, anxiety, and depression lifted, I still had the DPDR, but was able to kind of laugh at it. I wasn't afraid of it at all. I didn't like it, but I thought I would have to live with it forever, so I might as well not get upset about it. It did lift though, and yours will too. I know it becomes scary when a bit of an uptick happens because we feel like we have gone backwards in our healing. It's not true, but it feels that way. You won't be stuck with it forever. It just feels that way. Okay. Yeah, the derealization for me, I've talked about this many times. I think 1 or 2 videos ago, I talked about it at some length. It's a scary one. When I had it, before I really knew what it was terrifying. And I would always get panic attacks with it. And I would get it mostly on Thursdays. We would walk over to there was a open market near where I worked. At lunchtime, we would walk over there, and there would be wide open spaces, and I would just freak out because I felt like I was going to fall over sideways all the time, and I would have panic attacks while we were walking over there. Nobody knew it though. Nobody knew. And then when we would get there, everybody would be so close. There were so many people there that I would start to freak out too. It was a very, very strange symptom, but I had it for a really long time. It was scary, but when I got into the forums and so forth, when I was in withdrawal and realized, well, this is derealization. This is pretty common, like the dizziness, imbalance. It's all pretty common in withdrawal. And I had been taking Klonopin all those years, and even before the Klonopin, I had it some, I think from the drinking mostly. I drank a lot. You got to remember that I did drink quite a bit. But it does go away. I remember people in Benzo Buddies and other places, other groups that had it, and it can hang on for quite some time, but it does eventually go away. It really does. And the fear of like this lasting so long that it must be something else, very, very common fear. But yeah, this, and a lot of this I read for those of you listening to get a feeling of like you're getting to hear some of the symptoms that someone else has, so that maybe you can relate to some of those, and it can help you with like validation to know like, well, yeah, somebody else feels these things too. Okay, let me see. I am at 14 minutes. Okay, the next one. Let me see. Okay, I have written you before about tapering from 10 years of Klonopin use, and am suffering terribly. During your years of withdrawal, what did you use for pain? I have extreme right-sided body pain that nothing seems to touch, though I take Tramadol daily. I really need something for nighttime pain, and that Tramadol keeps me awake. I take Remeron at night, but it hasn't been working lately, and I'm exhausted. I am down to 9 milliliters of liquid Klonopin, but don't know when the end will be, in that the symptoms are worse than ever. I honestly don't see how anyone survives this. Thanks again for your videos. I watch them almost every night. And hang on to your last words that I will get through this. It will only be by the grace of God. Honestly, it's by the grace of God I think anyone actually gets through this, but I won't go into that place right now. Remeron, I took Remeron for sleep. Even when I did get sleep, I would wake up feeling exhausted every day, every single day. But the pain, I did take, I had arthritis too. I've had arthritis for a long time. From all the sports and things I played, broken bones and pulled muscles and dislocated joints and things. It's all caught up with me, I guess. I don't know. So I took, first of all, I took diclofenac, which is an NSAID. Then I was afraid that was hurting me. I mean, we all fear like when we take pills and withdrawal, is this causing more trouble than it's worth? Is it making my withdrawal worse? I left diclofenac. I went to Mobic for a while, which is meloxicam. That was a 1 pill a day. The diclofenac was 2 pills a day. Mobic is also an NSAID. And then I went to what I take now, naproxen, like over-the-counter naproxen, which I think is Aleve. And it takes the edge off my arthritis pain. But that's what I took, some NSAIDs, which seem to be okay. That they don't seem to really rev up symptoms or anything. But the pain and withdrawal it's a hard thing. The pain and arthritis is hard too. A lot of people have severe pain. I've read a lot of stories about, like this is severe, nasty pain. I've seen people with it too, that writhing in pain. So yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, I know this is a hard journey. It's a hard journey, but it does end. And I know, like when you're still tapering and having these symptoms, it's hard. It's just tough. But you do get through. You really do get through. Okay, the next one is a Facebook message. I got this one earlier this morning. Okay, hi Don, I'm sort of embarrassed to ask this. However, I imagine you may guess I would pick up on it, given my obsession with the SSRI. I know every time I talk about an SSRI, some people were going to ask me questions because a lot of people are still taking them while in withdrawal. I know it must drive you nuts. It does me. Anyway, you mentioned in the last video about when reinstating an SSRI and the awful reaction it can cause. I asked because of my use of Celexa, which was fine, only to be taken off when I crashed after family bereavements and put on Effexor briefly, terrible, awful, and then put on Lexapro, which I believe is very similar to Celexa. I'm wondering if maybe that is what is happening to me with my inability to heal after all this time, with symptoms worsening. I've been on Lexapro 5 years now, but I was also on the Valium for 18 months of that, so I've never been okay. I know I'm probably at my worst right now with the stress of my daughter going to university. Let me see. I'm just really worried about my prior use of psych meds, the stopping and starting stuff, and worried that it's making me more toxic. I wish I could get all of this out of my head. Let me see. Okay, catastrophic thinking and all that. I feel toxic with cortisol from all the fear. It makes sense. Sorry, I know I must drive you insane. You're not driving me insane. Okay, yeah. She talks about Celexa, which is citalopram, and Lexapro, which is escitalopram. Okay, what they actually are, I mean, they are very similar in structure. In fact, they're identical, except they are mirror images of each other. It's what you call chiral. They are enantiomers. They are mirror images. You can't overlay one on the other and have the exact same molecule. One of the carbons in the molecule, I think it's the carbon, the bond that comes off of it goes the opposite direction as the one in citalopram. So it's actually it's like when you look at yourself in a mirror, your image you could not put directly over you because it's like backwards. So that's the difference between Celexa and Lexapro. And it's funny because it's citalopram and escitalopram, and the S stands for, it means it goes the other direction. It means it's the enantiomers. They're mirror images. They're very, very similar, but they can create different kinds of things in different people. It's a good example of, you have two molecules here that are very, very, very similar, and have completely different reactions in people taking the same person takes both, either one of them, very, very different reactions. So I don't think that, see, the question that she asked basically was, okay, I think what she was getting at, I was talking about in one of the previous videos, she's been taking Lexapro for 5 years. I think when somebody has a, what would you call it, a paradoxical reaction or something like that, especially to SSRIs, you know it right away. You're not going to be taking it for 5 years and, you know, the whole 5 years you had this kind of reaction. Generally, what I have observed, what I have seen is, and I was told this way back when I was being polydrugged back in the 90s, that antidepressants can work for a while for a lot of people, and then over the years they kind of poop out. They call it poop out. It's not, you don't really get a paradoxical reaction. It doesn't seem to help anymore. And I think that's where your body has learned to tolerate it so well that it has no more effect. So that if you've taken this for 5 years, it's not a paradoxical reaction. It has all of a sudden turned on you. I don't think it's like that at all. Although I have seen very often when somebody takes something for quite some time, usually an SSRI, and then they come off and wait quite some time, like months or years, and go back on it, it can be paradoxical. It can be completely different. The person can react totally differently from it. And I think I mentioned this before, Zoloft is notorious for that, it seems. Like that. It happens a lot with Zoloft. So no, I'm not, she's on the Lexapro. If you've been on 5 years, it's not all of a sudden becoming paradoxical, I don't think. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that. But if you would go off of it and then come back on, it could be paradoxical. So maybe that's a good reason to stay on it while you're still in benzo withdrawal. I don't know. Okay. The next one is an email. Let me see how much time, 22 minutes. Let me see. All right. Okay, now this is an excerpt from an email. I think this is the last one I have here. Yeah. So I'll talk about this one a little bit. This could get a little philosophical. And I'll probably bring in some of my own family experiences because I have quite a few. I've been in this place before. Okay, okay, I lost my cursor here. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay, this is just an excerpt of the email. I got this right before lunch, so what it deals with basically is the baggage of life. We'll call it the baggage of life. And along with that, a lot of times is the ignorance of others. A lot of times it's friends. Most of the time it seems to be family for some reason. I don't know. And we all have baggage from our lives, you know. It's just, you know, the baggage is different, but it's all kind of like, in many ways it's the same, but we all got our own baggage. And when we're in withdrawal, we think of that baggage a lot, and that doesn't help us, that's for sure. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit of the email that she sent. And she was talking about something that had happened in her family. So I'll start with, it's several paragraphs down. Since then, Friday will be 3 weeks ago that this happened. I have had a surge in symptoms, mental especially. I am still suffering from the cold as well. She had a cold, a viral infection. It has rocked me deeply. She was my foundation. I think this was her grandmother. Now she is gone. On top of that, my family took their insecurities and pain and decided I was the perfect scapegoat. They got the emotional response they were looking for. I am so tired of looking and acting like an emotional lunatic. I have always been a passionate person, yet this is so much more intense, and I have a very hard time controlling it. I am so afraid that I will not heal, that so much damage has been done, and I am damaged from my past that I will be unable to recover. Surprisingly, I have learned how to deal with the physical symptoms because of having the MS and Lyme. It is the mental symptoms, the fear that you cannot explain to anyone, the racing thoughts, the rage, the emotional outbursts, the long time it takes to calm yourself down. I keep telling myself that it takes time to heal, and it doesn't help that I have a history of abuse. She was physically and emotionally abused. I am trying to tell myself that this is giving me the opportunity to heal it all because I have to deal with it whether I want to or not, because the band-aids that I placed to cover it up in the past have been ripped off. I have tried to put every mental illness label on myself and question if it is still recovery from the benzo. I'm so grateful for your videos and for the hope that you give us so freely. Okay, okay, at the end there, she talks about the Band-Aids that I placed to cover it up. Okay, I know a lot of you are familiar with my story, but alcohol abuse was a big part of it for many, many years. And you know, when I was little, my mother died, and not long after that, as I got older, got to be a teen, 13 years old, I started drinking, and that was a Band-Aid. I didn't want to. I mean, how do you face up to things when you're really little? You don't, and you have like siblings that, I mean, they're in pain too. So my Band-Aid was the drinking. And when I got through, over the years, it was very hard for me to discuss things. I had buried everything so deeply that whenever I would bring anything up about my family, and it was usually when I was drinking, I'd be talking to my wife, I'd just start sobbing. And I wouldn't even like focus on it hardly at all. Just the mention of it, I'd start sobbing. A lot of pain back in my past that I really did hide it for many, many years. And withdrawal, honestly, getting through benzo withdrawal, I was able to deal with all of that. I didn't even have to focus on it and deal with it and say, okay, I'm through withdrawal. It just kind of, it all healed for me because of the withdrawal somehow. I don't know exactly how that happened, but all of my past baggage kind of, I can look back at it now and understand it. I think that's the thing. Instead of fearing it and not wanting to deal with it at all, I can look back. I have like the courage now, and benzo withdrawal gave me that, to look back and say, ah, that's what that was all about. And it wasn't I was not at fault. It was others. Okay. And I wrote a reply here. I didn't actually send it to her, but I'll read some of this that I wrote. And I wrote here, when people die and I have skeletons come out of the closet, termites come out of the woodwork. In short, people show their true character, and it ain't pretty, and it's not. And that happened. Okay, I have examples here in my life, a whole lot of, I got tons of examples. When my mother died, and I heard over the years, and I don't think anybody meant, they weren't being very careful with their words. Mom never was right after you were born, okay? And how is a kid supposed to deal with words like that? It's like you killed Mom. Like you're to blame for our mother not being here. Apparently, when I was born, Mom had postpartum depression. She was apparently heavily medicated. She committed suicide, I guess. That's what they say. So it's like I caused my mother's death, and I that's what I was told. Basically, that's how I interpreted that as I was young, and through my life, I thought I killed my mother. You know, that's what my siblings think. Even though they don't always talk about it, they have said it a number of times. Mom never was right after you were born. Okay, there's that. And another example of like death and how it brings out true character. It really does. When I was in the Air Force, I was in the state of Washington, McChord Air Force Base, and my father was very sick. He had smoked a lot of years and drank. And he had lung cancer, and he was doing really, really poorly. And so I got a call like from I think it was actually from Red Cross. You need to come home. Your father probably isn't going to make it very much longer. So I got on a plane and came home. And I stayed with my stepmother, I think. And one night we were going to see my father. He was in the hospital here in Harrisburg. And so I was driving, and my brother and stepmother were in the car with me. And my father was a coin collector. He had many, many entire sets of different kinds of coins. Ben Franklin, silver half dollars, Standing Liberty half dollars, Walking Liberty silver dollars, Indian pennies, like whole sets of them, like some uncirculated, and all like Mercury head dimes, just all kinds of like these sets, and they were complete sets, and they were face value just probably tens of thousands of dollars themselves. And then when you add in like that their whole sets, and that probably at the time like probably close to $1 million of worth there. Anyway, we're driving to the hospital one night. I'm driving the car, it's dark, and my brother was told by my father, whatever happens to me, I want you kids to have the coin sets. There still was plenty of other stuff. And so my brother said to my stepmother, Dad wants, us to have the coins. Um, and then she got all upset about that, I guess. And later, I was the only one who actually heard this. I was the witness. Um, Later, she was complaining to all the aunts and uncles and crying and sobbing. The kids are trying to take everything from me, which is absolutely not true. And she branded my brother especially. Um, that he's the instigator of this and that, and it was all a lie. But the rest of the family, they kind of turned on us. I mean, because my stepmother said this, it was not true. And I'm the only one who actually knew what was said. So my brother, my dad, she told my dad too, like he was still alive. He was on his deathbed. I had gone back to Washington. He was on his deathbed. Apparently, she told him this, and he was very disappointed in my brother, which just was horrible for my brother. So my brother has had a lot of anxiety in his life too. But that's the true color. That's how she was. And to this day, like, I mean, she passed away too a number of years later, and nobody knows what happened to the coins or anything. It's just, I mean, yeah, we bent over backwards when my father died. She got everything, absolutely. She let us go through some personal effects, but the true colors. My sister, a month and a half or so ago, my oldest sister died, and one of my cousins came to the funeral, and like for some reason found it necessary to say things that were very disrespectful for my mother. My mother passed away a long time ago when I was little, and my remaining sister, like, she was telling this to my remaining sister, and she bought it hook, line, and sinker. She bought right into it. It was obviously a lie. There was no way that was true. And so then my other sister is like, she felt very disrespectful for my mother too. And I had to set her straight on that. I said, you have no idea who was telling you these things. But that's my cousin. It's like, why would you go, when people die, like, why do you do these things? Why would you say such a thing? And my mother was a target of a good bit by the Killian family. She was not, it's just very, very sad, like the way, when people pass away, like, the people remaining can say some really nasty things. What I boil it down to is, and all of this stuff is incredibly hurtful. I was so incredibly angry at my sister's funeral just back in July, and I had to set my other sister straight, but it just upset me so tremendously. But some people just do that. So anyway, I kind of boil it down like this. I am not responsible for the lack of compassion and love in someone else's heart. I'm responsible for my own heart. They can be the way they want to be. I try not to let it bother me unless, they disrespected, in this last funeral, they disrespected my mother. And I had to set them straight on that. There's just no way. This is your mother too. Why would you allow your cousin, who you don't even know, to come in here and disrespect our mother? And the sad thing is, compassionate, passionate, loving people get hurt more than other people. They're on the one side. It's like being hurt for being the way we are supposed to be. We're supposed to be loving and compassionate, and yet we're the ones who are subject to the most subject to getting hurt. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In some eternal way, I think it does. But and I've often told this to my kids. I believe others fail to show compassion and make others look bad in an effort to make themselves look good. They feel bad about themselves, so they have to try to denigrate someone else, bring them down lower than they are, when in fact it doesn't work. It makes them actually uglier, because everybody can see through it. Like, well, you're downing other people, disrespecting other people, thinking that it makes you look better when it makes you look even worse than you already are. So anyway, and I guess for the bottom line for me, like, and this has to do with my philosophy, my view of life, and it's biblical in a way. It's I look at it, we all want to sit on our own little throne, okay? Unfortunately, or maybe actually fortunately, the throne belongs to the creator of the universe. He allows us to sit with him on the throne when we have overcome. That's the wording in one of the verses, that when we have overcome. And to me, overcoming means when we have loved and no longer insist on sitting on our own throne anymore. In fact, we would rather have other people sit on the throne than we would. To me, that's kind of what it all boils down to here. People treat each other terribly in this world. It's just the way it is. And when things like, I mean, she in her email, there was the story of what happened. It was ugly. It's very ugly. But I think people do that to, it's like people always have to have a scapegoat, someone to blame. It's for I don't know why that is. I used to kind of be that way, but anymore it's like there is no one to blame. Life happens. Life happens. The key to it is, what is so important is how do we react to all these things that happen around us? Do we get mean and ugly and nasty like that and blame others, or do we just say, well, this is life, and you attempt to have compassion on other people? I think that's kind of what this all boils down to. But what she described was ugly, just as many of the things in my life have been really ugly. If I look back, yeah, that's pretty ugly. Like that funeral, this last one I was at, that was ugly, but you know, I'm over that. I know what the truth is. I know what the truth is, and that's important. It's not important for me to go around and insist that somebody else believe the truth. I mean, one day they will be gone from here, and they will have to give an account. Like, did they love or did they do the opposite? That's kind of how. That's how I boil life down. Maybe that's oversimplification. I don't think it is, but I don't like to make things too complicated. I think the whole thing, the whole meaning of life, purpose of life is pretty simple. I think we complicate it, and then there's the whole throne thing. We want to sit on thrones, and thrones weren't made for us. They were made for the Creator, and if we do what we're supposed to be doing here, He's going to allow us to sit there with Him, and that's going to be cool. So anyway, I'm heading for like 37 minutes here. I better be quiet here. See, it's Thursday. I have been informed we are having meatless chili tonight. I like chili. I like meatless chili, but I actually do prefer it with some meat in it. But, you know, lots of beans and different things. It's always good. It's always good. So I'll be doing tonight, probably NFL football game tonight, and probably a college game or two on TV too. So should be lots of good stuff to watch. Hopefully I'll get with Harold sometime between now and next Wednesday, probably maybe Sunday, I don't know, and talk to him a little bit and see what's going on with him. So as always, I'm right here, and I will be right here. Bye-bye.